And in this video I'm going to show you a little trick here that might prove to be useful come test time. I'll show you a little trick here for solving problem number 19. Problem number 19 looks to be an ideal candidate for conditional proof. We're after A horseshoe S, and so since there is in fact a horseshoe in the problem, of course we think to ourselves, aha, let's do conditional proof. Let's indent and assume the antecedent to this horseshoe statement. Let's assume the A. And certainly that is, fair enough, the obvious way to start the problem. And having that A at your disposal does in fact yield immediate information. With the A at hand, you could immediately do modus ponens utilizing line number 1. However, sometimes the obvious move to make is not always the best move to make. So let's explore the possibility here, even though it's not at all obvious, even though it goes against our general assumption, let's explore the possibility of doing indirect proof here instead of conditional proof. What would we assume if we did indirect proof? Well, in indirect proof, you assume the negation of what you're after. So we'll abide by that general rule here, even though it perhaps is going to look a little funny. The negation of what we're after would look like this. Not, parentheses, A horseshoe S. I've just put the entire conclusion in parentheses and negated the entire statement. So what can we do immediately with line number 3, our assumption indirect proof? Well, not a whole heck of a lot stands out. It kind of looks like a case of De Morgan's, where I distribute the tilde to the inside and flip the operator. However, the operator on the inside of the parentheses is not either a wedge or a dot, so I can't immediately, obviously, do De Morgan's. But I could set up a De Morgan's if I first did impl to the inside of the parentheses, to that horseshoe. So let's see what that would get us. 3 material implication, 3 impl. The parentheses and the tilde on the outside, of course, going to stay the same. Switch that horseshoe to a wedge, and horseshoe to wedge, you negate the first variable. So I get not A, wedge, S. And that would be the result of impl on line number 3. And now with line number 4, I can in fact do De Morgan's. So for De Morgan's, for line number 5, distribute and flip, and I would get a not A, which we know via double negation is A. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in as well. It becomes not A, double negation, that's A. Flip the operator, starts as a wedge, switch that to a dot, A and not S. So now the main operator is the dot, and so quite obviously I can simplify, getting the A, 5 cent. And then if I needed to, I could do a common ascent and get the tilde S by itself. So 5 com and ascent. So that ultimately is the end result of doing assumption indirect proof as opposed to conditional proof. If you recall, by doing conditional proof, you just simply assume the A. But by doing indirect proof, not only do you get the A, but you also get a not S to work with. So even though it's not at all obvious, doing indirect proof actually gives you a little bit more ammo to work with. Not only do you get the A, which you would have gotten anyway, but you also get the not S. And this S, this not S that is, might turn out to be useful. If I can break apart line number 1 and get S wedge T by itself, now I've got the makings with this not S at hand, I've got the makings of disjunctive syllogism to get the T by itself. And having that T by itself would be useful to do modus ponens with line number 2. That would get me not, parentheses, F wedge not F, and if you were to do De Morgan's on this, then you would have your contradiction, and you'd be ready to discharge, completing your indirect proof. So that's a handy little trick, not an obvious one, not something that I would have expected any of you to figure out on your own, but that's why the obvious move is not always the best move to make. Here, by doing indirect proof, you get a little additional ammo.